All right, so I'm Patric, one of the founders and CEO of Hansoft. Well, it started really as a project, you could say, back in 2002. We had this idea that the tricky thing was not to create schedules up front, to create product plans up front. It was really to manage constant change. So we started to build something that built on that idea. And we were a little bit too early in the market because teams back then weren't that big. This was kind of like back with the previous generation. And it was really in the beginning of 2005 that we realized that, okay, now the market is really starting to be more mature for this. So then we started to really push the button and approach the market. And the UK was really the first place where we made it.
Okay. And now you're really big in Europe and America is there. Which place are your main markets?
Well, you could say that it really all started very much in the UK, and of course also Scandinavia, being a Swedish company. Australia was a very early adopter. We actually got a lot of clients in Australia quite early. It's quite a few big studios down there. North America, we got the first EA studios using it in North America a few years back, but it was really, you could say, the last year that expansion in America has been the biggest. So there's been a lot of interesting things happening the last year. Generally speaking, it's a production management tool, and what that means is that it really encapsulates a lot of different things. For the individual team member, it's really going to be a prioritized to-do list of all their tasks and bugs assigned to them. So they basically just say, okay, so what tasks am I supposed to work on, and you just report on what you're done with. For a producer, it's going to be more like a planning tool, and more importantly, a tool to follow up on really things happening. So for tracking and for also delegating management to sub-product managers. And when it comes to product management, it can support both scheduling approaches, that would be sometimes called waterfall, and it also supports different agile methods like Scrum and extreme programming, etc. And then it's also a bug tracking tool. So in the solution you have a very fast bug tracking solution included. So that's great because then you can integrate bug tracking and product management in a much better way. Agile is really an umbrella name for a lot of different methods, and probably the one which is the most commonly used, or at least most popularized in game development, is Scrum. And some studios are using very much Scrum straight from the course or from the book, but it's also very common with more local adoptions of Agile. So I think what's important is really that the thing that unites Agile is that it's incremental and iterative. So that means that you have a slightly different approach to a plan. You don't have a very big Gantt schedule like you have in Waterfall. Instead, you have what you call a main backlog or a product backlog, which is basically the list of all the things you want to do. And this is in prioritized order, but not put on a timeline. And then what you do is that you take the top prioritized things from that and you commit that to the different sprints or iterations, you call it, which is shorter iterations of typically around 2, 3, 4 weeks. It depends a little bit. From the tool perspective, from the Hansoft perspective, what we have is that we have functionality to support these, the things that are different with Agile versus scheduling. So the main backlog, the sprints, etc. You have all of that in Hansoft. And there's a couple of metrics that are very interesting to use when you use Agile. One is, of course, the burn down chart, which is really an aggregated graph of all the work remaining reported. So you will see a burn down of how close you're getting to actually getting all the work done. And you can track the velocity, you see how fast you're actually getting forward.
In Quebec, HUM is one of your first customer in Quebec?
Well, the most recent, I would say.
The most recent.
Yeah, we've been working with some other studios here since before.
Which one? Can you tell?
Well, I think we try to stick to the public announcements on the exact teams and all of that, but it's not a secret that we are working with most of the publishers like Electronic Arts, THQ, and many of the others as well. But I think it's important to stress also that it's not only very big teams within the publishers that we're working with. We also work with a lot of independent studios. And also some smaller studios, not only the big independent but also smaller studios. Okay. But obviously production gets a little bit more complicated when the team sizes grow. You can, if you have a team of 10, 15, maybe 20 people, it's easier to manage that. versus when the teams are growing to 40, 50, 60, and the biggest teams using Hansoft are around 200 people. Then things get really, really complicated. So having a tool that can support scaling your production up to that is going to provide a lot of value, and it's really going to affect your bottom line. It scales from a functionality perspective. That's really what it's made for, but it also scales from a performance perspective. If you look at, for example, one of the clients that were announced earlier this year is CCP, the studio making EVE Online. They are quite big. They are over 400 people, and they're based in Reykjavik. They have a studio in the US, and they have also a studio in Shanghai. So that's a good example of where you have very, very big teams, but also distributed on basically 3 continents. And from a tool perspective, that of course puts a lot of stress on the tool, because if you want the same performance, it has to be able to keep up with that. And that's one of the beauties with Hansoft, that we got our own core technology that enables a true real-time update on everything. So you can see someone working on something in Shanghai, you will see that live happening in the tool, also in Reykjavik or in the US.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool.
Okay. And so it's all linked, I guess.
Yeah.
Every team member has this version, his version of
yeah,
this.
Yeah.
And I can change it as an administrator whenever I want. It will be made.
And also as a team member, you can have a delegated structure. So as a team member, you're going to report yourself on the things that you're done with, but it could also be that you're delegated rights for bigger portions. It could be to say you're delegated the product management rights of a certain part of the production, or maybe if you're running Agile, that you're going to be very involved with reprioritizing the sprint backlog, or it could be that you're delegated a part of the product backlog. So let's say that you're responsible for this new renderer that you're going to make. Then it could be that you're actually the product owner, and you're delegated party to put in new features and to take responsibility for that part of the production. We obviously want everyone to use it, but so if you're a small team of, let's say 10, 15 people, it's going to be a very nice to have, and we certainly have teams using it that are that size. But the big benefits are really starting to kick in when you have team sizes 30, 40 and above. Then it's going to make a big difference.